Hey everybody, Dan, I sent you a microphone. Sometimes it pops up really quickly on your screen. So if you just request a microphone in the bottom left corner, just hit that request button. I'll approve it and you'll be able to get up here. So just go ahead and hit that request button, Daniel. Hey everybody, giving Dan a minute to try to get up here on stage with us. Again, Dan, if you just hit the request button in the bottom left, if it's not working, just go out of the space and come back in. Sometimes there's an issue IT wise, and of course, you cannot be on your PC to do this. You definitely want to be on your cell phone. So you may want to try to go out and come back in. I wonder if you use the link that's in the DMs, because I find when you use that link, more times than not, when you come up to speak, a lot of times it doesn't work and you have to go out and come back in. It's weird. Hope everybody's doing okay. I'm just going to go ahead and get started. We'll try to get Dan up here in a minute. Welcome, everybody, to the longest running poker space. I'm your host, Sherry Pluskota, and I'm so excited you're here joining me tonight. And you'll get a chance to meet Daniel Lowery here in a minute. Many thanks to my sponsor, Elevator Results. If you need a tailor made workout plan to help you lose weight or gain weight, Elevator Results can design that plan. Follow them on Twitter or check out their site at elevatorresultspt.com. Hey, Dan, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here now.
Awesome. No problem. We are used to that kind of thing here in the
Okay.
spaces.
I had everything on my phone turned off, so that's I had to start going back into some things. How's everybody doing?
We are doing good right now. You and I are the only two with microphones, but we're going to rectify that here shortly. So if you give me a minute, I'm going to finish with the announcements, and then we'll get started. Sound good?
Perfect. Yep.
Awesome. One of the things I want to shout out is a little shout out to Fats, who announced, as many of you know, that he's battling cancer right now. So we're rooting for you, Fats, and we're praying for you. An example of um, how something positive can come out of what we're doing here in Spaces would be this whole hoopla about the employee event, which has now been changed to the industry employee event. And I'd like to think that our discussion last year with some of the powers that be in a space and our daily coverage kind of helped with that name change. And of course, now with that name change, there's a new hot topic, right? And discussion, which is kind of comical. But if you want some more details and updates on that, Greg Tapscott has put out an article a few days ago, and it was kind of him to ask me for some comments. So I am quoted in that article, but he discusses it and some good insight, I think. So we'll try to get that posted in the chat. If somebody wants to look that up and post it for us, we would appreciate it. All right, let's get started. Also, reminder, meetup game is 6/21 at the Bellagio at 1 p.m. If you'd like to donate stuff for the Splash of Pots, let me know. My guest tonight is Daniel Lowery, who is a sawmill owner from Arkansas and a part-time poker player. Dan is a Run Good ambassador and is currently fifth on the Run Good Player of the Year rankings. But those rankings haven't been updated since April the 2nd. And I know for a fact that he just won a Run Good main event last Sunday, so that he may be ranked a little bit higher than fifth.
Yeah, that should have bumped up
Yeah,
here as they update.
right.
Yeah.
Happy to say that Dan is the third out of the top 5 on that list that have joined me for an interview. The other two, of course, were Preston McEwen and Cody Stanford. A tough list of players for sure. Dan won his 17th and 18th circuit rings with back to back takedowns of two senior events at the Tulsa stop in March of this year. He and Ari Engel and Maurice Hawkins continue to rotate the lead on the list of most circuit rings won. Currently, another Spaces favorite, Ari Engel, is holding the lead at 19. And and you know what? That lead changes all the time, and it's been fun to watch. Dan has
Yep.
14 WSOP caches and 174 circuit caches. No bracelets yet, but those bracelets I'm sure are here to come very soon. Dan has a total live earnings on the Hendon Mob listed at 3.7 million, with his best live cash of over 394,000 for taking down the 10K WPT Seniors High Roller in 2023. Let me tell you that I'm writing this on Monday because unfortunately I had a death in the family, so I was trying to be preparing ahead of time because I didn't know what the week would bring. His Handed Mob had not been updated from his recent main event win at the Run Good series, and so his stats are fluid. And believe me, he's probably won four more tournaments since I looked those up on Monday, if I had to guess. But anyway, Dan's first Hendon Mob results started in 2009, and he has a total of 400 entries on the mob. Out of those, he has 21 fifth place finishes, 15 fourth place finishes, 15 third place finishes, 26 second place finishes, and a newly acquired 53 first place finishes for a total of 130 top five finishes out of those 400 entries, or 33% of the time Dan finishes in the top five of tournaments. That's really some incredible stats. I literally can keep going on this guy's accomplishments, but I think y'all get the picture. So let's get to know the man. Welcome, Dan Lowery.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for all those kind words also.
Absolutely. And I'm going to tell you, the list goes on and on of those accomplishments. So before we get knee deep into all of them, why a sawmill? How'd you get in that business? Was it family passed down generational or what?
No, not at all. I mean, sort of. My dad was he was always in the logwoods. He's been in the timber industry a little bit too. And I started cutting logs when I was 16 and decided to buy a sawmill when I was 19. And at the time, my dad was he was working in a factory. And after about 3, 4 years, he decided to retire and buy logs for me at the sawmill and let me do a lot of other things. I was still going back. I went back to college at that point, and there's just a lot of reasons that I got into that and not into other fields. I'd wanted to get into coaching, and I actually did coach after college. I was a high school coach, coached at the college level, coached girls basketball. Went to back national championship games. It won national championship.
Nice.
So I got into coaching pretty heavy, and was recruiting for several colleges and had several college offers around the time that I there was a tragedy happen. I had been working with Oklahoma State there in Stillwater, Oklahoma, and recruiting for them, and had one of my AAU girls there and another one on their way, and they were all coming of age for college at that point. And I had gotten the Coach Butkey to go watch a girl down in Southern Arkansas, and then another that the next night he was going to go. They were flying to watch another girl in Southern Missouri, and a senator and his wife and Coach Butkey and his assistant all died in a plane crash.
I remember that story.
And yeah, I felt responsible for a long time, even though I shouldn't, looking back at it. But I was still pretty tore up over it, and that's when I stopped coaching and started playing poker more. I That was when I started playing some tournaments. That was in 2010, and I'd played a lot of cash before that. Played a lot of bigger cash games. Played bigger cash then, putting pretty much my whole bankroll on the table a lot of times than I ever play now. So
Oh, interesting. Who
yeah, but
taught you, like, how'd you learn how to play poker? How'd that start?
moneymaker boom brought forth some online stuff that I was playing. And one of my first tournaments that I ever really I played a lot of dailies and whatever. And in Oklahoma, it started in 2005. They Oklahoma had finally legalized some of the casinos to let all these things happen. We started playing poker at right there on the border. I live in Arkansas, but right on the Oklahoma line.
Right.
So I started playing a lot of dailies around that area in Oklahoma, and had a crazy record that I would hate to say because most people wouldn't believe what the crazy amount of wins that I would have in these 60 and 80 player dailies. But always kind of started having ambitions then to play bigger. And anyway, that was we. I back to the online thing. I played an online tournament, a satellite, to get to go to the LAPT in Mexico, and at the time, gambling was illegal in Mexico. So when we got there, we had to sign these waivers that said that we knew that gambling was illegal. And I don't know why I started on this story, but it's probably my craziest poker story
Continue
that I
on.
could
We
tell.
love crazy poker stories.
So, so we were playing there, and there was like maybe five Americans there. It was in Puerto Vallarta, and super nice place. The Marival Resort. It's like a 5 star. They flew us out there first class. Poker Stars did, and put us up in this nice resort for 7 days, and all this for $11. I was there on $11 satellite, and played I think it was a $2,600 main, and I was chip leader for the first 2 days, and had done interviews with Bluff Magazine and with Telemundo. The
Right.
ESPN Telemundo was there, and they had all these microphones in my face. Because I had a huge chip lead through going into day three, and the cool thing about that one was that everybody that there was five LAPTs that year, and everybody that won the main got a Poker Stars sponsorship deal for a year, and, along with everything else. And so I was down there with Greg Raymer and Victor Ramden, and a couple other pros that that was representing down there, and so that's where I got to know them. But the federales busted in on day three. There was 15 officers, just busted in the doors with full militia gear and M16s and whatever. Everybody was
Good
screaming and running,
gracious.
and so they shook us down, and the Poker Stars officials all said, "Meet us back here at the Breezeway at midnight, and we'll discuss what we're going to
That's not
do."
so sketchy. Meet us at midnight underneath the big spotlight. Go ahead.
They just, yeah. Well, this is like at 8 o'clock. It was right after dinner break, so they said, "Well, let us get some things sorted out. We'll meet up at midnight." So we all met up down there, and they said they told them that for $3,000 an officer, they would let us play on the next day. And the officials there said that's just an extort. They just extorting
Right.
money, and 20 more just lock them the next day there. So they decided to um, do like a chip chop and whatever. That was one of my bigger wins probably my biggest win at the time. They did like a $5,000 per player, and then did a chip chop, and I won like 36 grand.
Nice.
And so for $11, and we got to spend 7 days on the beach. My wife and I was very happy.
Mm,
But
that is
but
quite a story.
But on the flip side, Ramden was second in chips and had twice as many chips as everybody else, and I had three times what he had. It was a crazy pyramid of chips that I had a picture of forever. But you can't find hardly anything on the internet about that because they brushed it under a rug, and they had Poker Stars had a big black eye over it and whatever. But that kind of started me
Right.
realizing I could play at professional level, and I never really played what I consider as a professional. I mean, a lot of people view me as that, but I play very limited compared to a lot of the pros. I have 4 children, and three of them are grown now. And since then, I've started playing a little more. Since the third one got out of high school and everything, so we're not doing as many sports and whatnot. I have a young 8 year old Gus that is still at home, and he travels with us everywhere. He's traveled all over the world in the last year and a half.
Nothing better than a real life experience for our kids. I tell you, I'm a firm believer.
For sure, he's seen some really cool stuff, and problem is he's around adults most of the time. So I mean, he's still in school. We've gotten some threats from the school that they're going to turn us over to the prosecutor for him missing 12 days, even though he's got straight 100s on every report card. So I mean, I don't know if we're going to decide to homeschool him or not. He's a brilliant kid, and he's not. That's not just because he's mine. He really is.
Well, let me
Uh,
just give you a little insight because I used to work at in the school district. Okay,
okay. Yeah.
so there's a little thing that they every day the attendance is taken, right, and so then
Hmm.
the computer just generates who has gone past the limit of days or approaching, and so when there's this many days, they're going to get a letter reminding them, oh, you better, get back to school a little more often or you're going to, be reported or whatever. So,
Right.
you know, there's always, just remember, there's always a way around it. And the superintendent is your best friend, whether you know them or not. Always call
Yeah.
for a meeting with the superintendent because they're the one thing that the superintendent doesn't want is publicity. So
Right.
just go in and speak to the superintendent, tell him the situation, and uh, 90% of the time, the superintendent will make sure it's handled. So, just a little FYI. And the reason I know this is not only because I used to work for two different school systems, but I had a daughter that traveled with tennis. So she missed lots of days of school.
Right.
So I get it. But, nothing in my eyes replaces that real life experiences, especially if you're traveling and going to different parts of the world. So, anyway, do you have any pregame warm up or ritual before you play a tournament?
Um, every now and again on a day two or whatever, if I might have like a certain playlist that I'll play while I'm in the shower and just get away from everybody and everything for a little while and just try to focus on, I mean, I always like on a day two, it's a lot easier than just day one where you don't know who's going to be on your table.
Right.
You have a you definitely get to do your homework on who's where at your table, what position they're in, and what their stack sizes are. So I look that over before I start my, I guess what you'd call a meditation, and I just kind of get a game plan in my mind of visualizing where I'm at and according to those stack sizes. A lot of the times, I would say 80% of the times, I'm probably going to be the chip leader or top three at my table for sure. And so I get to have a little more playability having that. But with the times that I don't have that, I really definitely need to figure out which ones of these players have more experience that might be and who I can take advantage of or whatever. But as far as any other pregame meals or anything like that, no. I mean, I try to get like on a day one. I try to get there as early as I can because I like to play a lot of pots, and I'd rather play them cheaper. And but no, I don't guess other than what I told you, I don't think I have a
Right.
game.
Right. Well, thank you for sharing those thoughts on that topic. And I want to give Karen Chess a shout out. She got that article that Craig Scott wrote about the employees, the new industry employees event. And I got it in the Jumbotron, but thanks for Karen putting it in the chat so that I can do that. Appreciate you, Karen. Okay, you have spoken publicly about your mental health, and which we're not going to get into unless you want to have something to say about it, but I would like you to give our listeners some advice for keeping a healthy mind as they grind on the tour or even in life.
Uh, we've had this talk a lot in the last year or two, um, and I think I can chalk up a lot of my successes to the fact that I don't play full time. I have um, a lot. I feel like I have balance in my life, and that's hard for most poker players to do, especially the young guys that just see the other guys grinding. They think that everybody's grinding all the time, so they really push themselves and push themselves to prove themselves.
And they forget to have a real life.
Oh, that's it. Yeah, I mean, I for one, I like to. Everybody always wonders why, or asks me why I play so much, and is that are you always on vacation? Why are you never at work and whatever? I mean, we have two sawmills there in Arkansas, and it's pretty busy. When I'm
Sure.
home, I work long days, and the funny thing about that is I enjoy that, and I mean, even though I'm the boss, I'm the one that's pushing everything. When I'm there, I'm working hard physically, and it seems to me like it's always my vacation is to go home, throw on my headphones, get in my own world in my saw cab, and just work. And it's
Right on.
and the flip side of that is while we're on the road, I like to think that I pick spots where my friends are going to be and where I can enjoy something outside of the casino a lot, or at least have friends that we're sharing a house with, or that we're staying at the same spots with, that we definitely go to dinner together. We grill out together, or play card games at our house if we're on an Airbnb. I see that Chris Conrad's in the mix in here. I'm usually at a house probably about half of the time, probably more so. I would say 75% of the time I'm planning my trips where Chris and Kat are, and we go to Cherokee 3 or 4. They go 4 times a year. I've been trying to go with them a lot, and we share cabins, and we get to go fishing, trout fishing, or go hiking, or
Right on.
we try to go to a movie or whatever. I mean, we don't stay in the casino as much as a lot of people do, and I feel like that helps as far as mental health and just to keep yourself sane. I mean, it's tough to be inside all the time and never see the sunlight.
I call that the bat cave. We're in the bat cave, right? And it's dark and it's mystifying, and it suckers us in, and I'm
Right.
all about, and I always have been, but I've always been that person that has gone hiking or gone, to a concert or gone to a show or out to dinner with friends. But that's because I'm not dependent on poker for my livelihood, right? And,
Right.
that's one reason. And a lot that of the folks that are on that grind, and they're just trying to grind for that dollar because their life depends on it. And if there was one thing I could say to the young grinders, is that balance has to be there. And maybe have an outside income before you make the commitment
That's,
to so
yeah.
many hours at the table, right? So anyway, thank you for your insight on that topic.
Mhm.
All right, I'm going to pivot this for a minute. We first met at the circuit event at Harris Cherokee, and I want to give a shout out to Chris and Kat too because they're two of my favorite people. But anyway, you and I first met at the circuit event at Harris Cherokee, and you.
Yep, on stage. I remember we was up on stage.
Yes, we were. And
Yeah.
you kind of took me by surprise with some of your comments about women in poker.
Oh God.
More importantly, about one particular person, but we're not going to share any names.
Okay. All right.
But I would like it. I talk about this all the time. We talk about men and how they treat women in poker, but women are can be bitches and treat other women horribly too. So could
Sure.
you maybe give some examples of what you were like, of how you have seen or been touched by other women treating other women poorly in poker?
Yeah, that's. I'm glad you asked that because I'm to clear things up for anybody that's listening. I'm a big advocate for women in poker,
100%.
and I work with the WPA. And matter of fact, I'll give you a good example. They asked me to come to a they asked me to come to a dinner one night in I guess that we were at the I want to say we were at the Rio. It's been 3 or 4 years back, and we had a deal where uh, I was probably one of 14 people there, and I was the only male
Right.
there. They were, of course, bad mouthing how it was during a ladies' week. Ladies' event was maybe it was the night that they had their warm up for the ladies' event the next day, the bracelet,
Right.
and they were kind of bad mouthing how men, treat them and this and that. And they asked my opinion, and some of them I might not have liked it, but they were all at least receptive to it. And my big thing is they have. I'll see all the time where there'll be maybe two women at a table, and this is what's really bad for women. So you have two women at a poker table, and they've kept their mouth shut. They've made a little bit of small talk, whatever, and then all of a sudden everybody folds around because one of them raised and another, the other one had called or the other one had re-raised. So they just go heads up to a flop.
Right.
So they get to see they get to play a hand together finally. And after this hand, no matter who won or lost, they criticize each other over it for the next 10 minutes, and they talk really poorly to each other.
Horrible. I've seen it.
I,
Horrible.
I see it so often, and for one, it's a bad look for them. But for two, it shows men that maybe that's okay for them to talk
Exactly.
to them like that, and it's not. I mean, it's not good for any of us to. I'm not going to candy coat it. I'm pretty nice to most people unless they're really rude off to me, rude to me
Right.
at the table. But I don't cut anybody any slack just based on their gender. So I hope that women never just thinks I'm picking on them because of you know, I'm, I'll raise her blind the same as I'll raise anybody else's. I mean, I'm not gonna, just because she's, been sweet to me, I'm not going to let that pass or whatever. But at the same time, if she's rude to me, I'm not just going to give her a pass either.
And I'm going to tell you what, I don't want you to. Like,
No,
I
you
just want you to treat me like I'm a poker player, not because I'm a woman or not a man. I mean, I
should.
just really want you to treat me as a poker player.
Right. So yeah, we had that discussion. And I told them until they start treating each other better, you know, then men aren't going to be totally receptive to their claims of being called out because they're a woman. I mean, they're going to have to do their own part. And the other thing to that is the double standards when it comes to certain sexual comments. A woman think there's a lot of women. I shouldn't say a woman. Some women at the poker table think they can say anything crude and sexual to a man and get away with it, or to a dealer or whatever. When in the same breath, if it would have been a man treating that woman that way in the box, as the dealer, I stand up for it quickly, because a lot of the men they don't want to sit there and they don't want to sit there and
They don't want to hear it either, do they?
no, I mean, literally, or they'll start rubbing on them when they're all in or whatever. I mean, put their arms all over them and try. I've seen so many of those things, which I guess it's playful and it's whatever. And I don't, I steer clear of any of the drama with that. But when it comes to something like that, if a man was to do that to a woman, he's liable to get kicked out for life,
A
for
hundred
sexual harassment.
percent. 100%.
And I just think that they need to, if they're going to really bow up and say men should treat us differently, they should treat each other different. They should treat each other the way they should want to be treated, for one.
100%.
And they shouldn't say crude things. That, look, we're not in church. I've always said that, so I don't mind. I'll drop the f bomb in front of a woman. If there's an older woman at the table, I usually apologize if I've said something crude or whatever. I
Right.
try to be conscious of it and not even say it in the first place. But for the most part, when the women are cutting up and everything in there, I mean, I'm not going to hold my tongue and say anything. I'm not going to say anything disgusting or rude or crude or sexual in front of them, because I wouldn't want anybody doing that in front of my wife or sister or girlfriend,
Right.
female friends. But you know what I'm saying? I'm not just going to candy coat it because they're a lady, because there's a lot of
Guess
these.
what? We can have adult conversations without being rude
There's
or
a lot of
crude, right?
female ladies. They're not, there's a lot of them that are not ladies at the table. So, but that's all I'm getting at is I think that, and that's the one thing that the next poker boom has got to be more women in poker.
It's got to be the next poker boom is a female win in the main event. It's going to
That's
be
it.
the female moneymaker effect.
Yep, I agree.
That's
I mean,
what it's going to be, at least in my eyes.
or
Well, I
yeah,
appreciate you giving a little insight on that because I have thought about that conversation with you on the stage at Harris Cherokee quite often.
oh well, the person we were talking about that will remain
Yes,
unnamed is still a terrible human being,
absolutely.
and I mean, she's just that. It doesn't matter if she was a man, woman,
Yep.
black, white, and she's just a terrible human. So I still have that view of her, and it's not changed.
And
But
many do, unfortunately, because, um, as I say about other women that I have said, wow, they're just a terrible person. They're
Yeah,
such a great poker player. They like they're overshadowing their own accomplishments on the felt
right.
because of the way they treat others, right?
That's right.
And you can almost say that about Maurice Hawkins as well. I
Oh,
mean, it's not,
yeah.
you know what
I
I'm
mean,
saying? Like,
there's there's a lot of male poker players that have huge accomplishments that just can't handle. I don't know. I had a talk with Mo years ago when he had won his fifth ring. I was actually here. I'm looking at the spot in Durant right now where we were standing when I had this discussion with him. I said, "You finally won, your fifth ring." I think he tied Mark Smith for the most at the time, and I said, "You've got your respect. Start
right,
treating people a little different." We came on the scene at about the same time, and he was hearing me, but he wasn't listening. I mean, he wasn't really being res- responsible at all about that. He never realized how great of he's got a great personality if you get to know him. And I know a lot of people say that, and a lot of people roll their eyes, and I've said the same thing. I've rolled my eyes at times when people said that, but I mean, he and I have gotten we've gotten to know each other on a personal level. I know his some of his
sure,
family, whatever, but it would be so great because look, and I'll put it out there just like any other minority, females being a minority in poker, for the most part, black people being a minority in this game as well.
absolutely.
Have somebody like a Phil Ivey, who is the best, in my opinion, still of all time, but he's not got a personality. So he's just very quiet. Nobody gets to know him. He's not, yeah, people respect him and look up to him, but he isn't somebody that's out there promoting the game for his race.
Right.
And on the flip side of that, you've got somebody that's flamboyant and he can be as likable as anybody out there, but instead he uses all that charisma and everything, if you want to say it that way, or he uses his platform to make everybody hate him.
To be
He
the
feels
bad guy.
he wants to be the villain, and I
Yeah.
wish it wasn't that way.
And honestly, I have been around him in Cherokee, and he is like a very quiet and reserved person, or like as he's walking around and just mingling, but
Yeah,
at a poker table he's very on stage, so to speak,
that's
right? And a big personality. And um
fun.
I think that he does love that villain role, but I really think he could do so much positive if he'd flip that. And
That's what I'm
yeah,
saying. That's
I
what I'm.
do, I
I
agree
think,
with you so much on that for
especially
sure.
for the younger, especially for the younger generation that's
Yes,
coming.
yes,
And
I agree. Now I'm going to make a couple of announcements.
okay,
First of all, our daily WSOP coverage kickoff show is going to be May 26th at noon. Um, Eastern time, which is 9 a.m. Vegas time for those that are unfamiliar. Um, Last summer, I went 53 days in a row with lots of people supporting me along the way, and we covered all things Vegas poker. You can tune in and see what the tournaments are for the day, who won the day before, of course, all the hot topics and drama of the day. And we asked folks like Dan and Jonathan and John and Matt and anybody else, Barry and Biloxi Bomber Chris, any of you playing poker in Vegas during the summer camp, stop by our space and tell us how you're doing. So that's going to start on May 26th. The second thing, I want to give out a little shout out to my daughter, who coaches ladies Gonzaga tennis team, and they beat Santa Clara today, which punches their ticket to the WCC tournament next week in San
great.
Diego. So congrats to Nat and her team, and good luck to them as well. Tell us what the worst advice somebody gave you about poker would be.
Man, I don't really know. I'd have to think on that one for a
All right,
second.
we'll give you time.
Okay.
How about, are there any common mistakes or leaks that you notice other players making?
Um, some of them are going to be some that I'll mention that I believe are partly my mistakes as well.
Okay.
I would say they don't pay attention enough at the table. As far as just at the table, I'd say they don't pay attention enough, always on their phone. I'm the world's worst about that, of trying to disconnect from certain things and not be too involved. And I mean, I feel like I can pride myself in knowing that I'm one of the better live read players in live poker. And for me to be missing out on all that is just, I'm just losing money doing that. Not paying
Right.
attention, not seeing things. So, and I know that, but I see other players do that, and I try to take advantage of that when I can. The other things I would say outside off of the felt that's very relevant is I see a lot of the younger players that will um, play long hours at the tournament table and then decide they need to go play in the cash game later, and over the course of the week, I can tell that they're using Adderall or using other substance. And
Right.
then, of course, to come down, they might have to smoke something else to come down and go to sleep, or whatever. And it's just a constant up and down, and you can just see them being a zombie by the end of a circuit stop, or especially in the summer, you see these kids walking down the hall just zombified. I think that has been a thing. I've never used a drug and never drank alcohol at all. I've never even tasted. I'm proud of that, but there's times where, man, the fatigue factor late in the tournament really really hammers down, and I think that them taking those over time. I've seen several. I mean, I've been in the game in this game for 20 years now,
Right.
and I've seen a lot of those kids come and go, or become addicts, or become just very, very bad. I mean, I wouldn't say that the addicts were necessarily bad people, but there were some of them that just turned to other things and then turned into just shitheads.
Sure. Of course. Of
Um,
course.
get to see some of the really, really good younger players when I was starting out. Some of them I even backed and whatnot. They turned to that they turned that dark side, and they just never recovered. I don't feel like.
Right. They get swallowed up, don't they?
Yeah.
Are you going to the WSOP this summer?
I'm gonna go a little early. I think Gus gets out of school the 23rd, and we're gonna drive. I've only driven to Vegas once, and it was miserable. But we're gonna drive out, so I have a car, and we're gonna spend some time on the way back home at the end of summer. Sightseeing and whatever when we're not in a time crunch. But I'm gonna play a couple tournaments, possibly at the Win before I have to come home. The first that next weekend, I have my oldest son is getting married in Northwest Arkansas on the 7th. So I'll be home for that whole weekend, celebrate,
Nice.
and then I'll be back out for the whole summer, and hopefully get to play a lot of bracelet events. The only bracelet event I would play before I could do that, the only thing that looks like it would be time permitting, would be the mystery bounty, and I mean that's a big tournament. So I mean,
Right.
for my style, it should be really on the top of my priority list, I guess. But I've just not liked mystery bounties very much since they've come out with them. Um, Last summer, I played. I was probably a top 20 stack. I mean, I think I had like 140 bigs coming back to day two in that tournament, and was very excited about being able to, just if you just picked off one person that you could go up on stage and get the minimum 25,000. It's
Right.
for summer, and
Right.
then there's two $1 million prizes. I mean, it's like the lottery, and a lottery that you can halfway control. You can actually win several bounties. But I wound up. That was maybe my biggest disappointment of the summer, was because I didn't get. I think I made $3,000-4,000 maybe in the tournament, and I only got a half of a minimum bounty. This
Oh,
guy made Broadway and busted a guy, and one of us got to draw, and it was, or they drew our bounty, and it was the 1K. So I got $500 bounty out of
oh,
coming back with one of the biggest stacks in the room.
I. And so tell us what your style of play is.
Um, I'm very, very tight, and I never play, but maybe my VPIP is maybe a 10, 10%. No, I'm kidding. I,
I was waiting for you to finish with the bullshit so we can get to the truth.
I, I'm very aggro. I play, like I said earlier when I was talking about trying to get to a tournament on time. I like to play a lot of hands. I would say I play, um, realistically, I would say I play in certain times of the tournament. I'll play 60% of hands, which is probably double to triple what I should. Most people are
Right.
thinking is the norm, and I try to be the aggressor in most spots. I think I've always said that you get more information from betting than checking or calling. So when I do play on the more aggressive side. Um, but yeah, and I do take my foot off the gas at certain times. There's certain times that I feel like that I could be spiraling or having a little bit of winner's tilt and spewing chips
Right.
or um, things like that, and I back off and for a spell. But people never notice that I've folded literally for 16 or 18 hands straight. They don't realize that when I come back, when I feel like it's time to strike again, and I come back, they give me all the action I want. So I feel like the aggression early in tournaments. If I'm like in day one of the main, where you're probably going to be on the same table with maybe 11 players throughout that day, 11 or 12
Right.
players. Common that those players toward the end of the day, um, I have a really good track record with abusing like a day one bubble or a day two bubble or something like that, which is absolutely the most ridiculous bubble you can imagine. But I feel like people want to say they made it out of day one in every
Right.
tournament. So if they're thinking back on how I played early or whatever, I just have to be aware of what they think of me. Regardless
Right.
of that. I need to know individually how I've played hands with those players because I've played the most. I've played the most hands throughout the day. So I don't know if that
Very.
answers your question or not, but
No,
I'm
I
pretty.
think it does, and I think it's a great insight. That a lot of folks need to hear because they come in tight and they try to play the whole tournament tight, and you got to make some moves, and you have to be aggro sometime or another. Um, okay, you've spoken publicly, and I quote my about your checkered past. You have rose above the hoodlum in you to become a husband, a dad of four, a business owner, a world renowned poker player. What do you think got you to where you are today? How did you rise up?
Um, had some. I could name you a few major milestones that got me through. Finding out that I was going to be a father helped me grow up a lot, and I would say meeting the right woman when I met Krista. We've been together 20 years this week, so meeting her and having something new to live for there. I've gone through a lot of things in my life that, my third child came about. She was born on my birthday, and it was one of the hardest times in my life at the time. And it, her being, all of my kids being born was very special, and all of them were life changing. Don't get me wrong, but those two were kind of milestones in the sense that they were at the right time in my life to wake me up and say, hey, there's still there's something new to live for. There's something even more to live for. Um, I might be the closest with the child that I'm not even talking about. So with my middle child. But as far as times in my life when there was something life changing that shook me to the core, it
Some of
was
those reality checks, eh?
children that did that. And I mean, just getting a closer relationship with God for sure was was something that really truly changed me for the better. I mean, when I say I was a hoodlum, I'm not exaggerating. We won't get into
No, we
my
won't.
true my true past, but there was some things in my past that I really don't like to talk about. And I mean, the only way I was delivered from that was by God,
By the grace of God.
for sure.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that with us. I think that, you know, we need to hear all of the sides of everyone's story. We don't have to go into all the details, but when you
Right.
rise above some of the darkest places in life, you should be celebrated. Too often, we in the poker world like to focus on the negative. But in my research of you, Dan, there were some common golden threads. So on so many social media posts, besides the common congratulations on your wins,
Yeah.
there were some comments which, in my opinion, speaks volumes about the man you have become.
Thank you.
I'm going to give you some of those quotes because I think it's important that we listen to our peers. Richard Battles, a dealer and floor person, wrote, I watched Dan Lowery win event after event after event, always with such class and humility. Luke, and I'm sure I'm going to mess up his name, but Luke Mendy maybe,
Mhm.
wrote, the man cannot be stopped. He's a class act. Joshua Allen Gibbs wrote, absolute goat, in my opinion. Also hard pressed to find a nicer guy, a class act. Go Duma. Tim O'Connell wrote, wondering if Dan can walk on water. And I loved your reply. Scared of water.
That's a fact.
Preston McEwen wrote, the poker player I most look up to, not only as a player, but as a human as well. How proud of yourself, are you when you read those statements?
I don't guess I have the words. I mean, I know that I I strive to be a better person every day, and definitely human. I've definitely got that dog in me to where sometimes I snap at people, or I'm human, and I don't have my best day, but for the most part, I try to be a good, just a good human, and try to be a good ambassador of the game when I'm at the tables, and away from the tables. I mean, I've always tried to be very generous with my money and my time, and I've been, anybody that knows me knows that part of me the most. That you know everybody's always welcome at my table, and
Amen.
that's figurative, and I mean, but it's
I get it.
yeah. I mean, that's
I get it. I love that. I absolutely love that. And I just, like I said, the more I read, the more I was like, okay, we have to touch on this because, you rose above it. And, you're a giving person, and people feel that from you, and their comments reflect that. So kudos to you for sure.
thank
Absolutely. Okay, for those of you that are listening, I appreciate you. If you'd like to come up and ask any questions or give us some comments, please click on that request button in the bottom left corner, and we'll get you up here and give you a chance to speak with Daniel for sure. All right. What's your most rebuys into a tournament?
um, there's been some legendary bogus lies about that, but
Well, set
it,
the record
it
straight.
was there was a time we were in Pearl River, Mississippi, for the for a main event, and I fired 9 times, and which sounds like a lot, but there's a lot of those guys fire 2 or 3 times that. Sometimes I fired 9 times that time, and it the legend grew to 13, and it grew to 20, and then somebody was um, asking me about it, and I said, "Well, I ran out of money, and I had to ask so and so for another 4 buys." But it was like 31 or 33. I lost count. Just I was pretty much bullshitting everybody, but it was 9. But I did go on to win that tournament. And there was another time that we were on a cruise ship for Run Good, and they had a main event, and between Chris Conrad and myself and John Heckenkamp from Tulsa, we fired around 30, and I'm not sure who fired the most, but we were all pretty close to.
Well,
And
there's no shame in rebuys, right?
yeah,
And
but yeah, the 30 total. Let me reiterate. It was the three of us total.
right.
So it's
Well,
somewhere around. I've gotten to where I'll try to only, like, on the circuit for sure, since it went to a 15% payout, which we all hate. Um, I try to only fire twice, and like in places like Cherokee,
right.
uh, or places. There'll be. I mean, I might fire 3 or 4 times, but I try to definitely limit that, and even there, because there's other things I can play and make money at. But when I say 2 times, that's per flight.
Right.
So there's not. I'm not ashamed if I feel like it's very easy to fire 4 flights of a tournament and be in eight, 9, 10 shells and play and feel like you played pretty close to perfect. And I mean, because over the course of it doesn't take long to bust a tournament, and if you fire it a second time when the blinds are big, it's very easy to bust it within a couple hands even.
Absolutely.
So getting 8 or 10 shells stuck in like a monster stack um, in a Cherokee or somewhere bigger, like Choctaw has some pretty big tournaments and whatnot. But some of those tournaments I've done that. I've went back and fired last second, with like 10, 12, 15 big blinds, and the it was not this season, but last season, I think I won 4 rings, and 3 of them were from Max Late Reg, where I'd fired early, busted, went to dinner, did whatever, and came back and fired the second one at the max so that I didn't get stuck in the tournament, and had won 3 rings off of that. So
You're
I think there's some merit to buying in if you know how to play every stack size.
right.
Like Preston's always been the one that'll tell you he doesn't mind firing multiple because he views it as his very first in a new tournament. And I'm the same. I feel that same way, but I try, over the past few years, I realized, you're not going to be near as profitable if you fire more than two, especially if you do it in multiple tournaments in a
Series.
series.
Right. Right. Yeah. Because let's face it, our friend Cody, he's firing 36 and has to get to 12th place before he breaks even. Right.
That was
So,
pretty, but yeah, he's the type that, I mean, in one of these days, Cody will calm down. I mean, not anytime soon. I don't see it, but once Cody gets chips, he's very deadly, and he plays a bigger stack very well. So if he does do that, I mean, I don't mind him firing however many shells he wants, but I do hate that he puts it in dark a lot of the time.
yeah.
I mean, I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
never done that, but for him to do it over and over and over, and there's some of these guys that are in there um, that are uh, that are limited to 1 shell or 2 shells, and you just broke their heart. And I mean, it's not, yeah, we're not making friends in poker for that, but to be an ambassador to the game and to be, uh, I mean, I think Cody's respected, in plenty of aspects, but sometimes people, and by the way, I'm not bashing Cody.
No, of
Cody's one.
course not. No,
Um,
no.
but but I think that if he would realize that some of these people don't have the money he has, and because I mean, granted, I'll bust if my grandmother was still alive, I'd bust her in a heartbeat. I don't care about that. But to just put it in dark and it just be strictly a bingo kind of game where these people wake up with a big hand and he's got 20% equity and he hits it. I mean, he hits it.
Right. And it could be somebody, could ruin the experience for somebody that we're trying to
It could put.
maintain to come back to the felt
That's right. Yeah.
and not be their last time, right?
I
I
mean,
mean, we can all
he,
see that.
look, if he busts me in the dark, it's not gonna bother
Right.
me one way or the other. I mean, I know the risk involved if I'm calling his all in, but people, if they're calling him and it's their only shell, they've got a monster hand, and then if he busts them, I mean, it just gives them a sick feeling like they're helpless. They're already
Right.
they're already up against. They already know that where they're at in their life. They know that they're an amateur. They know that they have a lot to learn. They know that people like Cody and others are really good, and they're not as good as those players. And then you throw a luck factor in, they just feel helpless and maybe quit. And that's where I would wish that he would limit that at least. I mean, if he wants to throw it in there every now and again, you know,
Right.
fine, but
Right. Right. Right.
over and over it sucks.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question that I've decided I'm going to ask my guests every week,
Okay.
just to get a feel for everybody's just kind of collective opinion on the topic. So, if I were to say to you, Dan, the world of poker is putting a new rule into place, and we want your input. We're going to limit the number of rebuys into all tournaments in the world.
Okay.
How many rebuys do you think players should be allowed?
Um, I like I like when they. I've been on the circuit for a while, so I remember being. I'll give you a long answer. Okay.
Sure.
The When I first came on the scene, you could only fire one time on. There's two flights to the main event on the circuit, and you could only fire once per day.
Right.
And I remember one time it stands out, and it's a bad beat story, so bear with me. But there was a guy. There was these weird denomination chips in Shreveport, Louisiana, and a guy had made it 500, and I made it 1,200, and a guy that tried to call 1,200 put out 10,200 because the 500s and the 5Ks looked the same. And at the time, the starting stack was 20K. So it comes back around to me, and I felt bad for this guy. He was distraught. He didn't want to put that much in there, and
Right.
I had two aces, and I risked. I thought I was doing him a favor, and I mean, literally, I was not scared of having two aces and running it. It's the fact that I knew that he was in there for 1675 or whatever the buy-in was, and that he didn't want to bust like that. Well, I turned at risk of getting a one-round penalty. I turned my hand face up. I put my chips in, and he felt committed. And even seeing my aces, he called me with King Queen of Hearts, and he busted me. And I didn't have anything else to do that day, and it was, you know what I'm getting at. So I was,
Right.
I
Right.
wish I could rebuy this tournament. So when they came in with a one, sorry I had to tell a bad beat. This I was going to avoid that,
It's
but
okay.
there's the reason for that is that now that they have one reentry per flight, I love it. They don't need to have any more than that. And my
Okay.
I would I like that. I wish that there was just a few tournaments in Vegas in the summer that had one reentry. They most all of them have one reentry per flight of every tournament. I'm glad that the main event doesn't, and I hope it never does.
I agree.
I don't think it will, but I mean, I like the fact that you can rebuy one time, and I don't think it needs to be more than that, to be honest. And even in the on the circuit, the only one that maybe I would reconsider is maybe the PLO, to where you could have two rebuys, because that game just plays so much faster, and most people that play that game has more money. I'm just just to be honest,
Right. Right.
and so I would say if I would say just one reentry, you know.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that input for sure.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to welcome to the stage Karen Chess. Do you have please meet Daniel. Do you have a question or comment?
Yeah, hi, nice to meet you, Daniel.
Yeah, you too, Karen.
Do you go by Daniel or Dan?
Both Dumont
Both.
and Daniel, they call me a lot of things depending on their mood.
um, well, yeah, I've enjoyed the interview quite a lot. And there were a lot of things that jumped out. I guess I'll just start with the first one. I thought it was interesting. You said you have a couple of are they sawmill businesses?
Yes. Uh huh.
And so I thought it was interesting that you enjoy your work in owning the businesses and going in and grinding.
Right.
It reminds me, and your humble attitude. Both of those things remind me of Dan Weinman, who continues to work and loves his job, and he programs. I don't know if you know Dan or
Yeah,
know the
well,
what.
I know of him. I know that Chris Conrad is really good friends, so I've kind of lived a little vicariously through him when he made his run, and
Mm-hmm.
has filled me in on his background too.
Yeah, he's very humble like you, but he also still has the same job he had before, where he works with these guys locally. He's from Atlanta, and I live in Atlanta,
Yeah.
but he programs for these poker tables and loves his job. So yeah, it kind of reminds me of you a little bit. I thought that was interesting that you have that balance, and I'm guessing that it probably keeps your love of poker alive. That's not all you have.
Right. That's a fact. That's what we was talking about with the balance. I mean, if I don't feel like I'd have near as much success if I played full time.
Yeah, I mean, attitudes seems to be so key with being successful. The other thing I just wanted to also mention that jumped out at me, you just mentioned it in passing about, oh, you wonder sometimes about homeschooling. I did homeschool my oldest till he was in seventh grade. So very experienced. He's graduating from college this May, so we made it.
Good. Yeah, I'm looking into it more all the time.
Yeah, I had some issues because y- like you're saying, my oldest was just crazy, crazy bright. It was just like, or it became a worry for a while because, he was just doing everything early and very obsessed with learning. And so kind of fell into the homeschooling, but it worked for a while. It was nice. It was fun, but it is a lot of work.
Right.
It is a lot of work. I looked into it when my kids were little, and I was like, nope, I am. I'm going to be out playing putt putt and swimming, and we're not going to get any lessons done. So we better go to the schoolhouse because, like your family,
Yes.
Dan, our family is very sports oriented.
Right.
Go ahead, Karen. Are you finished, love?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you
Thank
for joining us. Matt, welcome to the panel. Meet Dan, and do you have questions or comments?
Thank you, Sherry, for having me on. And I mentioned about those tech issues. Well, being a Yorkshireman, I used some British grit, and I managed to get through it. So thank you for having me on. And hello to Dan. Hope is it Dan or Daniel? Do you prefer, man?
Daniel. Daniel, for most everybody calls me Dan or Daniel. It's up to you on that, Matt. Thanks.
I know it's good, lovely to talk to you, Daniel. I remember seeing you actually. On I've been watching poker on YouTube quite a lot because unfortunately we don't have it televised as much over here across the pond.
Okay.
And I remember that tournament that you won. That was unbelievable, man. That hand that must have felt really special. What were your thoughts going into that tournament?
Which tournament are we talking about, Matt?
I think it was the one of the main events that you were in. I can't remember which one it was. I know it was the WSOP one.
Okay.
It was a long one. Well, anyone in general, really. How you would prepare for something like that?
Um, yeah, I get excited. I've said this a million times. I get excited no matter if it's um, a circuit main or a bracelet event or just a $150 nightly or whatever at the local casino. I get excited just to be able to have a chance to win. And matter of fact, last night I had a chance to win one and had felt like I played some of my best poker throughout the whole tournament. It was a PLO tournament here in Choctaw in Durant, Oklahoma, and I had a 6-1 chip lead going to heads up and lost. And the difference between first and second in this small tournament was maybe $2,000, and I literally lost sleep over it. I mean, I woke up this morning, and that was the first thing that I thought of. I was very upset that I got second. I'm very competitive. I mean, I like the guy that I lost to, and we shook hands, and I embraced him, gave him a hug, and congratulated him in the whole nine. But I hate losing. But as far as preparing for those tournaments, I mean, I think at this point it's more of I have a lot of experience nowadays, and I've always been known to be a closer in tournaments. If he was on when Sherry was trying to swell my head at the first of the space, that she was talking about some of my stats for top five and above, and I guess I've never really thought of it that way, to have a third of my caches be top five, and I guess I guess from what she said, probably close to 20% of them be first or second. So I've always been known to be a closer. So I guess just to prepare, I just try to prepare for a long day because I feel like I'm going to be there at the end of the day, and I try to keep myself grounded and keep perspective when things are going bad, and know that I can build chips back very easily. I've always been able to build chips early in a tournament, and same as what we were just talking about earlier about buying in very late in the tournament, max late reg in a tournament and winning it. If that's the case, then I know at any stage in the tournament I can build a stack. So I try to stay patient in those times when it's looking a little bleak,
I'm just going to say, I hope I'm not the only one that is noticing how Dan is exuding confidence. Like I have not heard one doubtful thought or sentence in his own abilities. He is very confident, and I hope people take notice to that. That
Hope
you
it, I
got to
hope
be
that doesn't. I hope that doesn't come across as cocky or arrogant.
no, not at all,
I just
not
feel
at
like
all.
the experience. A lot of these younger players, they come in cocky, but they don't have the experience, and you'll see a difference in that. But yeah, I mean, I just feel like every poker player, any successful poker player, whether it be in poker or be in business, whatever, you've got to have some sort of air about you, but you got to at least be humble enough to realize that things aren't going to go your way all the time.
Well, and believe me, you don't sound cocky at all. And I just want people, my listeners, to take notice that if you're not feeling good about something, some part of your game that you are not, not confident when you even speak about that part of your game, then work on it, right? Just work
Right.
on it. Matt, do you have any other questions or comments?
Blimey, I don't know how to top that one. That is really good, and you didn't come across as cocky or anything like that. I'd say definitely genuine. It's a good thing, man. It's quite an inspiration actually for younger poker players who want to get involved in the game. So good on you,
I
man.
appreciate that.
Absolutely, 100% agree with you, Matt. I'm going to let Dennis come in here. Welcome, Dennis. Did you have any questions or comments? We'll come back to you, Matt. Dennis Baker, you there? Click that microphone in the bottom left corner, and your microphone will come live. There you are. Go ahead,
Hey,
Dennis.
Miller. Daniel, how you doing,
Hey,
buddy?
buddy, what's happening? What's
I want to
happening?
ask you a question, and I've got several. Oh, I could talk forever, but you know me, I'm not going to. But how come every time I raise you or you raise me, and I have ace king, you always have aces?
Well, that's the way it's supposed to work out.
Is that the way it's supposed to be? All right, that's one thing. Now, was it Atlantic City that you gave me the watch?
Um, yeah, I believe so. We were there. You
All
were
right,
you were there with a friend of ours, Johnny, that had never
yeah.
been out of town ever, and
Well, he couldn't speak
no, he
English.
couldn't speak a lick of English. And yeah, I remember that. We were there for the national championship for the circuit.
That's correct. Yes, and Johnny that couldn't speak English, so you had me. I mean, he paid my flight to come out there and take him, and I was the. To me, I felt like, well, good. I'll be the chauffeur because when Ari came in on the flight, Ari Angle came in on the flight. He didn't have a way to the casino,
Yeah,
so I drove the 40 or 50 miles back and got him and came on and brought him back.
yeah.
But you gave me that watch that day, and you were and I gave Krista something. You remember what that was?
It was a it was a knife. You do
Does she still have
We
it?
do have it. Yeah, it was a knife with a deer made with deer horns. It was for the handle. Yeah, I
Yeah.
cherish that. I remember that for sure.
Yeah. But I mean, I'll tell you what, I've always just, I played the circuit just on weekends because I'm like you. We both have a past. And I went to I own an air conditioning company
Right.
now. And we've been doing it for 27, 28 years now.
Yep.
And, I've always thought the world of you. And,
Likewise.
Krista, I loved her to death,
Yeah.
so, but you always have aces. It just chaps my
I hope
blood.
everybody that's listening realizes anytime I raise, I have aces.
Yeah, right. I watched you. Yeah, and a while ago you said Shreveport. You really meant to say Bossier
Bossier City.
City because we played in a tent. All right, this is one more story I want to say, Sherry, and then I'll
Sure,
let somebody else talk. But
sure.
back when the circuit was held in Bossier City, Louisiana, we had to play on top of the roof because Bossier is uh, river boats, and they don't allow us to play on land. So the
Right.
only way the circuit could be played is if they put a tent on top of the roof and it held 400 or 500 people, something like that. Maybe not that many, but
Yeah.
we had good circuits and everything. But it was just amazing how we had that going
We
on.
had a tornado warning when I was down playing cash game in the basement of the boat, and my wife Krista was She was dealing. She was a circuit dealer then, and
Right.
they had they never put weather on the TVs in a poker room. You know, they just won't, or news or anything. But for some reason, they put the weather up there, and it was all red and purple on top of us, and so it was showing tornado warning in our area. So I ran upstairs, and that there was a when we're talking about a tent that, like you said, probably held 300 people. I don't know, probably.
Yeah, something like that.
And it's a huge tent, but that thing was flopping around, looked like it was about to take off when I got to the roof. And I come out, they were already evacuating everybody, and I started out the doors, and a security guard put his hand in my chest and said I couldn't go. And I said, I'm getting my wife off this roof. And I pushed him out of the way, and he comes in right behind me, yelling her name with me to get her. And then they evacuated the whole roof.
Jesus.
The tornado was a half a mile from the casino. It was pretty.
Yep. Well, the reason why I said that is because I was sitting there one day playing on a table, and Dan, back then everybody considered Dan had a crew of guys like Cord. What was Cord's last name? Garcia, or what was?
Yeah,
Yeah, and a bunch of bunch of players that Daniel played with all the time, and they always seemed like they raced to see who would get 100,000 chips
yeah,
first. And Ben Reasons was sitting at my table that day, and I had made a statement because I was watching everybody out there, and I was watching you, and you were building a stack, and so was Sanders, Michael
right.
Sanders. And I said, looks like Daniel's crew's making a run at it again. And well, Ben tweeted it
Yeah,
to somebody, and all of a sudden, head just went to popping up because Ben said, "This old man over here talking about how Dan and his crew are making a run with chips again."
yeah,
And everybody looked over there at me, and I just kind of stood up and looked, and everybody started laughing. Poor Ben, he didn't realize that yeah, I knew all of
sure.
y'all. It was funny to me. But back to that watch one more time, and then I'm through. But he gave me that. It was a Run Good watch when Run Good first came out and
Oh,
started giving out all the players a watch. And Daniel wanted to give me that watch so bad, so he waited till we got to Atlantic City and he gave it
Yeah,
to me. Yep, I remember. Krista told me he couldn't wait to give you that watch, and I tell you what, I still got it
good.
along with my card marker
what
and
a great
everything.
story. Thank you for sharing that with us, Dennis. I appreciate you listening tonight and joining the panel.
Well, Dan's a good person. I tell you what, I've met a lot of poker players, but I tell you what, he is an ambassador to the poker.
Thank you.
Love that.
I appreciate you, buddy. I miss you.
Yeah, I miss you too, buddy. I'll talk to you
All right,
soon.
all right. Woo pig.
Thank you,
All right, bud.
Dennis.
Thank you,
Thank
Sherry.
you,
Yes,
buddy.
ma'am. All
As
right, bye.
mentioned, you're Run Good Ambassador. Can you tell our listeners what's coming up on the tour? What's the next stop?
Um, the next stop's in Council Bluffs, Iowa, at Horseshoe Casino, and I believe it's a regular 6 day stop there. I was supposed to have been at, but I bowed out of it so that I could be closer to home. And there's other stops. There's one in San Diego, one in Grayton, which is in Roanoke Park, California. That's my probably tied for first on my favorite places to play between there and Cherokee.
I have not been to Grayton yet, but before they go to Grayton, y'all go to Grayton, Japan. Are you going to go to Japan?
No, we're not going to Japan. That's a really cool thing. I hope it opens up new doors for Tana and Run Good. And I would love to go overseas and play in Asia at some point. But yeah, that's supposed to be starting, I believe, next week. If I'm
The 27th through the
okay.
29th.
Yeah,
Yep.
and
Okay, so Horseshoe, Iowa is the 22nd through the 27th.
okay.
Then it's Japan, the 27th through the 29th. And then Best Bet, which hopefully I'm going to
Yeah,
get to see Chris and
yeah.
Kat down there.
Chris will be down there. He's trying to get me to come down, and he just he just they accepted an offer on a house that he put in this past weekend, and he's excited they're gonna
Oh,
be homeowners. And
congratulations. I selfishly wanted him near where he lives, and I live not very far where he grew up. we
Yeah.
aren't very far. So selfishly, I was hoping Georgia, but I knew it couldn't be because he needs to be around poker. But
Yeah.
congrats, Chris.
Yeah, so they'll be down there representing at Jacksonville, and then we also have a Kansas City stop that I'll probably go to because my daughter Jenna is she's going to school to be a doctor there at Kansas City.
Nice.
I'm going to probably go up there for the last tournament. And the main reason, well, the main reason is probably to see her, hopefully, and then the other reason is I didn't even have a clue really about the leaderboard. I went to a couple close stops
Right.
early in the last season. We have 2 seasons a year, and I mean, but the leaderboard lasts what they call a full season, a full year. So I had actually been number one on that leaderboard in November, and then I told Tana I wouldn't be playing anything, before the series. I wouldn't be playing this second part of the tournament series, and of our tour anyway. And he asked me to come to downstream to fill in for another ambassador that backed out at the last second. So I went up there and was able to play the main, which worked out great. And that probably puts me at second or third in points. And I
Right.
really, I don't take this wrong. I didn't care one way or the other about that player of the year. So I wasn't going to try to compete to get first in that or anything. I think I would have had a shot had I played. Some
Of course.
but Mikey Johns is doing great. He's representing Run Good really well. I mean, he's not one of our ambassadors, but he might as well be. He's done really well with it this season, as did Brian Winter last season, and I think he'll win it hands down. And then, but they told me that they had these special made rings that they would make to commemorate the top five, and then you get other perks like a free travel or something to go. I should be a better ambassador and tell you the real truth on what they're giving out for the top five. But they have a season-ending series there in I believe in Thunder Valley that we'll get to go to.
Nice.
So we'll if you're in the top five, you get that. So if I'm anywhere close to getting bumped out, I'll for sure go to Kansas City and play, just so that I get me another little trinket to put with some others. Uh,
Right.
but because Haley Hochstetler was the one that she had designed all those rings.
And she
Every
did such a great job in designing them, I
She had
might
done
add.
awesome with everything with Run Good. She helped really take Run Good to the next level, and she helped with 8131 when they started that together. And she's going to be greatly missed with Run Good. She took a job with Poker Org this past week, so she's moving on to other things, and we wishing her the best.
Absolutely. And, she did a great job with Run Good, as you said, and she'll do a great job with poker.org. And,
Yep.
she's going to be getting married soon and she's got some exciting stuff going on. So kudos to Haley for sure. And I want to give the dates for Grayton are
Okay.
May 1st through the 12th, and the dates for Kansas City are May 13th through the
Okay.
18th.
Thanks for
So,
giving that
um,
shout out to Run Good.
absolutely, no doubt about it. Okay, so I'm going to give you, I'm going to say a poker player's name, and I would love for you to tell us a story about them
Okay.
or give us a comment about the player.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to start with one of our spaces favorites, Ari Engel.
Okay. And I could tell you 100 stories on Ari. We've known each other for a long time. Um, Something relevant to what's going on now with our rings race. Um, we were, we talked on the phone for a bit before we went to Grayton, their first stop, and we had talked about, well, one of us need to be on top of this rings leaderboard,
Right.
and so we were going to push each other. I was like, well, let's just, have something friendly little prop bet on who could get to 20 rings first. It was around the time that my daughter had graduated high school, and I knew I was going to get to play a little more. And since then, he's won. I think I was one ahead of him at the time, and I think he won maybe nine. Maybe I've won 10, and he's won 11 since
Okay.
since that. But the fun thing was, we went to Grayton, and it was their first circuit event, and he won. He won a ring like we'd only been there 3 4 days, and he won a ring. So I jumped in as winner pick with him, and that was very exciting for the poker room manager to have our two mugs up there because we were, as far as circuit grinders, we were probably the two most recognizable that was there at the stop,
Right.
and that was good press for Grayton Poker Room in the casino. And then the following day, I won the PLO. We both final table the PLO tournament was a 1K, and I wound up winning it, and he got in my winner photo. And then that night he won another one, and
Wow.
so we won three in 2 days out
That's
there,
insane.
and so that was really good press for Grayton. And I can't say enough good things about Ari. He's just an awesome person and an awesome ambassador of the game as well.
He certainly is. And like I said, we love him here in Spaces. He has definitely hung out with us. He allowed me to do an interview. I just think the world of him for
Yeah.
sure. Okay, how about Cody Stanford?
Um, Cody and I have known each other quite a while, and we've had a lot of heart to hearts and about things. I tried to give him some advice on backing players. He was backing a lot of players, still does, but I'm hoping some of it, you know, he holds, closer to the vest than he was backing so many players that was kind of dead weight to his bankroll, in my opinion,
Got it.
and I tried to help him with that a little bit because sometimes you get blinded by your friends or who you
Sure.
think you know. And but Cody is very very generous, and that's a good quality. I mean, he's generous to a fault, I guess you could say, because he wants to help so many
He's
people.
got a big heart.
He does have a big heart, and I really do care about Cody, and he's got a new baby and beautiful baby, and he's doing awesome. And I couldn't tell you just one specific story. I mean, um, we've had some cool moments. I mean, we went for a when we were in Grayton that same week. We went, no, it was on a Run Good series. We went out there. Both of us were ambassadors, and we went out with a friend of ours, Kurt, that's a poker room manager there, and we went for oysters and we went to the beach, and the beach we froze our tails off on the beach. That's how it was, so cold in Northern California. But we had a really good time out there, and we bonded, and I think we're closer because of that week.
I love that. Love that. Okay, Preston McEwen.
Man, I so Preston, we were playing in a tournament in I'll just give you this one might take a little longer. So the I've always been one of the main ambassadors with Tana and Run Good, and he's taken my advice on a few things over the years, whether it be who sponsored us,
Sure.
for our season, or who we picked up for ambassadors, or structures, or different things like that. But the one thing that he trusted me on was he said he needed somebody from that area where Tennessee area. He wanted to pick somebody up, and I was just happened to be playing a random. I don't know if it's a bi-monthly tournament or something around that time, and at Tunica at Horseshoe, and and he was running a thing with the bar league down there and around
Right. In
and
Murfreesboro.
so we wound up playing on the same table, we made the final table of this tournament, and he busted me out of the tournament. And I was already texting Tana. I said, I think I found the right guy. We played all day and night together, and I just felt like he just has the it factor.
He
He's got
does.
he's got a presence when he walks in the door. Everybody looks to him. Everybody he just radiates perfection. I mean, I don't know. He's a good looking guy. He's a great poker player.
He's
He's
a
just
leader.
he was the perfect pickup for Tana
Yep.
and Run Good, and I'm glad that I had a part in that. And since then, we've stayed together in different places. We stayed in a place we called the Moose Lodge in Cherokee one time, several of us, and had a great time that week. And we stayed in one called what we called the Goat House because there was goats out the side, but it was just a bunch of pretty good poker players that all was staying there that week. and he'll stay in the same house that that I'll be in most of the time in Vegas this summer, and he just exudes positivity, and he's just a very genuine person. What you get is what you see with him. I mean, I can't say enough good things about Preston.
I love it. I love that you're gushing about him. It says a lot about him, and I could not agree more. And I have spent a millisecond of time with the man, um, and I just think the world of him. He used to
Yeah.
come and play at the Little Kings and Queens here in Atlanta, so I did
Right.
get to hang out with him some when he was in town. But yeah, I think the world of him. So I love the fact that you're gushing about him for sure. Krista Lowery.
Oh my gosh. Um, so we met 20 years ago. Went out. Was it was It was kind of funny. We were all in a group chat the other day, and she said that um, she was washing my truck. She was detailing my truck on our 20-year anniversary of our first date.
Oh,
And in return, I had to win a tournament, and that was before day two started. And so I held up my end of the deal, and she did too. So that's what we've always been supportive of each other in everything that we do. We run our business together. Um, we're not just husband and wife. We're best friends, and um, I mean we just always have each other's back.
good for you. And she's a heck of a poker player too. You left that out.
Yeah, she is definitely that. Every time she shows up, she wins. It's ridiculous, and we're all jealous of it. And when I mean, yeah, just whenever she shows up, she turns it up and she plays. But we just can't get her to play.
Well, and you know what? It's her choice, and we got to support it,
Right.
right? And happy anniversary to you and her.
Thanks.
And thank you for answering, or telling us some comments about those folks. It's always fun to hear somebody's
I,
perspective.
what one more? I'll tell you a real quick story.
Yes.
Since you brought up Little Kings and Queens, and since one of my best friends in the entire world, Chris Conrad's in the chat, he took me one time. We were on our way to Cherokee, and he took me to Little Kings and Queens. I didn't know what to expect whatsoever. I had no idea what this place was, and so he says, "Oh yeah, the action's good. You're gonna really love it." So we park in the sketchiest parking lot ever, like in the dark, and we're carrying way too much cash on us, and be in a sketchy parking lot from what I was gathering. And we go in and we walk into a Mexican restaurant. I mean, I don't have to tell you this.
Yes.
So we walk into this Mexican restaurant, and I'm like, this is so strange. So we go into into the little kings and queens, and there was a ton of tables going. And I get on this PLO table, and he winds up eventually getting on it with me. And this train comes over, or I don't know if it came over the building or beside it or what, but
Oh, next to it. Yeah, across the street. Yeah, yeah,
so the when
yeah.
the dust fell from the ceiling onto the felt, and they came around with a brush brushing all the felts, and I thought that was the funniest thing ever.
It's so
Yeah,
true.
it was so great. But yeah, Chris and I were really close. I was his best man in his wedding, and that was one of the biggest honors I've ever had. And we spent 3 weeks with them down there in Mexico, where they were living at the time, for their wedding, and it was one of the most awesome experiences ever. For sure, it was the most awesome wedding that I'd ever been to.
Oh, that's awesome. And his wife, I love her. I met her down at Best Bet a few years ago,
Yes.
and love Cat as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah, he definitely kicked his coverage.
hell yeah.
That's the way it's supposed to be said. I don't know if he's a lucky man. I'll put it that way.
Yes, he is. And I'm glad you got to experience our little kings and queens, which, by the way, is no longer in existence.
Yeah, I know.
But
Sadly,
when it was still alive, so to speak, it was a great place to go.
yeah, it seemed like
And
it.
yeah, it was awesome. I love that place. And it was an old tanning mill building. And so it just had a lot of character. It was a big brick building. The walls inside were brick. They didn't
Yeah.
have,
Oh,
and it was,
it was a cool spot. I liked it. I
yeah.
got to play it once. I know Preston used to go down there and just take all the money from there every time he showed up.
Hell yeah, he did. Hell yeah, he did. And
Yeah.
we had some of the best, yeah, we had some great times at Little Kings and Queens. Shout out to the folks that were trying to make it happen here in Georgia for us.
Yeah.
Too bad a politician ruined it, of course. All right. I like to do something I call, and many call, rapid fire. I'm going to give you two choices. Pick one or you can pass, okay?
Okay.
Gummy bears or Sour Patch Kids?
Sour Patch Kids.
Mountains or beach?
Mountains for me, beach for my wife.
Well, I knew it was going to be the beach because you can't swim or
Yeah,
you're afraid of water. What did I say?
right.
You the
Right.
quote.
Yeah.
Cook or do the dishes?
I can't cook at all, so it's to do with the dishes.
Hamburger or hot dog?
Hamburger.
Texting or phone call?
I like to talk, so I'd take a phone call any day.
Mad Max or Mission Impossible?
Oh man, that's close. I would say Mad Max.
Yes. Okay, this one has four choices.
Okay.
Who's the better poker player? Cody Stanford, Ari Engel, Preston McEwen, or you?
Oh my God. Um, Ari's proven it at every stage. I don't think anybody can dispute that. I love the other two guys, and I'm just happy to be in the same category of what you would give a choice. But we got to go with Ari. He's just proven it in every continent, and he's won four bracelets and the Aussie Millions and the most rings, and done the best out of any of us online. And I mean, he's the goat.
Thank you for playing. Now I'm going to go around the horn and then we're going to let you go and so you can enjoy your Friday night. Matt, do you have any other questions or comments for Dan?
Other than a fascinating conversation between yourself, Daniel, and Dennis as well, that was awesome.
Yeah.
That I really really loved that.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, just for a quick one, have you or would you, if we ever hosted a tournament in the UK, would you host one over here?
Would I do what over there?
If we ever hosted a poker tournament over here in the UK, would
Oh,
you
that would,
would you come play over?
yeah, that would be great. That would be awesome. Yeah. I want to start doing a lot more traveling. That was one thing that some of our friends we've all talked about is, I would like to get. I'm still going to give it a shake next season, probably on the circuit. I probably won't play another one this season, but I would like to get to 20 rings. That was kind of a goal that I had, that Ari and I both had, and I want to get to that, and then I just want to play nothing but the places I want to play. I want to go to Ireland. I want to go to Scotland. I want to go to Australia. Uh, I enjoy playing like in the Caribbean. We've played down there the last couple years some, and I really enjoy the travel and just the camaraderie with new people. So yeah, I would love to come to the UK.
Couldn't put it better, man. Anyway, been a pleasure, Sherry and Daniel. Sorry, been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and wish you every success with whatever you're up to as well, and good luck with them future tournaments as well. Sherry, been a pleasure.
Thank you.
I'll see you later.
Thanks, Matt.
Appreciate you, Matt, as always. Uh, Karen Chess, any thoughts or comments?
No, I really enjoyed getting to know you, Dan. I look forward to hearing about you getting some more rings, up to 20, you said.
Right.
So I know you're going to do it. So
Thank you.
look forward to hearing about it.
Yeah, it's good to meet you if you ever get a chance, and we're in the same spot, please come up and introduce yourself.
I definitely will. And I do play at Cherokee. I play
Okay.
the circuits there.
All right. Well, I don't know that I'll be there unless Chris really twists my arm and gets me to come out for the second part of it in a couple weeks.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go, but it's going to be the last weekend this
Right.
time.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. I
You too.
appreciate you. Do you actually have a prop bet with Ari for number 20 or no?
Yeah. I mean, we just discussed having dinner. I mean, we don't get to actually sit down and have a good meal, but that was what we originally said. We'd some kind of a meal. We've had a few in our life, but it's usually with about 10 or 15 other people for like a winter dinner.
Okay,
Um,
I'm just going to tell
just
you for number 20, I think the winner should say, we're going to dinner, but we're going to eat dinner under the Eiffel Tower in Paris or something.
yeah, that would yeah.
I mean, something like, you know,
Oh,
something
Yeah.
big, right? Okay, Dennis,
Right.
any last questions or comments, buddy?
yeah, Daniel. How is your voice I followed your son during his high
Yeah.
school football, and when he broke his
Right.
arm and everything. Did he continue sports when he graduated or
No,
not?
I he that year that he broke his arm, he was getting some scholarship offers then, and that was his junior
Yep.
year. And then his senior year, he really didn't get any looks, and he had a great senior year. And then but that
Uh,
senior year, the last game of the season, he tore his hamstring, and he didn't get to play basketball. And the school he was going to, they lost their first 6 games, and when he came back, I talked to his coach into not putting him in putting him back in until that, you know, toward the end of um, or till the end of a Christmas break to let him heal completely up. So they went 0-6 to start with, and I think they were 3-6 when he came back, and they wound up getting to the state finals. And with him, he had an amazing basketball season. He was really really good at both sports, and but
yep.
he could have played either in a small college, I think, but I was really happy that he didn't go on and play college. My oldest daughter played and had a really good college career in volleyball and was the Sooner
Well,
Conference Freshman of the Year, the
yeah.
Sooner or the South Central Region Freshman of the Year. So she had a lot of accolades in college, also.
Yeah, I followed her too. All right. One more thing, Sherry, if it's okay. What's the now I love to hunt
Yeah,
and everything because it was one year I think I processed a deer for y'all so y'all
right,
could take it
right.
home. But what's the largest rattlesnake y'all ever brought out of them
My
woods?
uncle used to. We've avoided showing how big of a hillbilly I am until now, Dennis. Thanks, bud. So when I was a teenager, I used to drive my uncle around when he would drink beer, and we would go up on Mount Magazine, which is like the highest point between the Rockies and Appalachians. And in October, it would be really warm out on the pavement at night. So the rattlesnakes would come out onto the
Oh yeah.
road, and I would spotlight the rattlesnakes. I would spotlight where he could see them, and he would go catch them. And we got a hold of one that was 7 feet long once on that mountain.
Oh, hell
It
no.
was about the
Was it
it was diamond.
eastern?
It was a diamondback. I don't know. I,
Well, see, like Louisiana, we have
yeah,
timber rattlers, so they get 5, six
yeah,
foot,
that's
something
probably
like
what
that.
that was. I mean,
But
because it
yeah,
laid really flat, it was probably 7 inches wide at the middle.
you know, to me, a snake is a snake, and if I
The
got a
only
shotgun in my hand, he ain't gonna
the
live
only
no
good snake's a dead
more.
snake. That's what I've.
Amen. All right, we gotta switch the
Well,
we
honey,
gotta switch
I live
the
out in the
subject off the
woods, so
snakes, y'all.
I live out in the woods, so I have to kill him. I can't even move an air conditioner without looking
Right.
for a copperhead to
Oh
pop his
yeah,
head out.
I'm sure.
Well, okay, I
Yep.
enjoyed talking with you, Matt. Same with
Thanks,
you,
Dan.
buddy. And Chris Conrad, how you doing, buddy? I hope you're doing good. And I'm done.
See you.
See
Thanks,
y'all later.
Dennis. Appreciate you.
Yes, ma'am. All right. Bye bye.
Dan, thank you so much for coming in the spaces with us tonight. I hope you enjoyed it.
It was fun. I had a smile on my face, and I've had tears in my eyes, and I've laughed. I think that's what Jim Valvano called a good day.
Well, I appreciate that, and good luck, and hopefully our paths will cross soon.
Okay.
And wish that gal of yours a hello for me. And God bless you, and happy Easter.
Yep. God bless you too. I'll see you guys on the flip.
Thank you. Good night, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Good night.
Appreciate y'all.
Yep.
Good night.